Hey there, thank you for joining me for today's practice. My name's Paula. So today's sequence is a restorative focused practice. So hopefully you've got a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, then you could use a couple of big firm cushions or pillows or something like that. And if you've got a blanket handy, just grab that as well and just have it folded up so it's ready so you can use it for some extra cushioning if you need to. And we're going to make a start in our child's pose using the bolster. So when you're ready, let's bring the big toes together, knees wide, and bring the bolster in towards you so you can lay yourself down on the bolster. So it's really supporting you, and you're letting the arms rest down. Turn the head to look to the left here and allow the eyes to close down. And you want the bolster or the cushions to be in a position where it's really feeling like it's supporting you and you can allow the weight of the body to go. So you're not having to hold yourself up in any way here. Just allowing the muscles of the face to soften. Trying to take the breath down into the lower back and spreading into the mid-back as you inhale, and as you exhale, just allow the body to get a little bit heavier. And as we stay in the pose for a little bit longer, we'll hold the poses just for about a minute or two. You might notice release happening in different parts of the body. So that process of letting go is continuous. This last couple of breaths here. And then let's turn the head back to center. Make your way up to a seated position and move the bolster a little bit further away. So we're going to go into a down facing dog, but we're going to use the bolster to support the head. So place the hands down and walk your knees a little bit further back and tuck the toes under and lift the hips up towards the ceiling, and then find a position. So you might need to walk your hands a bit further forward again. Let the top of the head, a little bit of the forehead and the top of the head to rest down onto the bolster. And it should release that heaviness and help you press the hips up towards the ceiling. At the same time, let the crown of the head relax down onto the bolster. And so this is a little bit more active than the rest of the poses that we'll work through, but this is really a lovely variation of down facing dog. Helps you to lengthen out through the spine, and allowing the crown of the head to rest in the bolster, it just signals to the parasympathetic nervous system just to let go. And then let's come back down onto the mat with the knees nice and wide, big toes together. And we're going for that supported child's pose again. Bring the bolster back in towards you and then laying back down onto the bolster. And this time let's turn the head to the right. Just letting the arms relax. Making sure you feel supported. and extending into your breathing. So slowing down the inhale and slowing down the exhale. In a restorative practice, we want to try to use props to support the poses so we're not feeling too much pressure on any of the joints, which is a little bit different to when we do our yin practice, where we might still feel quite strong sensations. Just last few breaths here. And then bring the head back to center. Walk your hands towards you to come up right a little bit. And we're going to take that supported down facing dog just one more time. Moving the bolster away from you. Come onto your hands and then shift your knees back, knees hip distance apart. Tuck the toes under and lifting the hips up. And then allowing just the top of the head, a little bit of the forehead to rest down onto the bolster or your cushions. Keeping the back of the neck long, so we don't want to be in a position where we're craning the neck. Lifting the hips up towards the ceiling. And then coming back down onto the knees here. Knees together. Come to a Japanese seated position and then sitting over to one side, and let's bring the legs out in front. I'm going to move the bolster behind. Come down the mat a little bit. And we're going to go for our twisted deer now. So this is somewhere you might want to use your blanket for a bit of extra support as well. We're going to start with the bolster pretty close to us. I'm going to bring the feet into our Baddha and then bring that right foot back so the foot's pointing back by your hip. And we're going to turn towards the left, bringing that bolster in close to your hip, and then we're taking a twist and we're going to lie down onto the bolster. If this is too strong for you here, you can always just bring it in a little bit closer. We'll just make it a bit of a shorter position. If you have it behind you, then it really opens up into your hip. If you would like a bit of extra support here, you can pop a blanket down. Just gives you a little bit more support for your head and neck. And then just resting down. And make sure that your hip, don't feel it's not too pulled forward. You want to make sure that the pelvis is stacked one on top of the other. Rest the arms down, closing down the eyes. And just notice how you start to settle into the pose. It's the tone of the body. This might be a little bit harder at the beginning, just as the body's adjusting to the position. Then as you stay with the breath, and particularly on the exhale, you can find a way to soften and let go. If it becomes too strong with that right foot back behind you, just remember it's an option to just bring it forward, stack it on top of the left leg, and make it more about the twists in the upper body. This last couple of breaths here. And then using your hands, opening up your eyes, leaning into the hands to start to come back upright and turning to face the legs. Release that right foot back from behind you if it was there, and then bend the knees up. Knees can just be hip distance apart, and just lean forward over the legs, and you can take hold of one wrist or just hold onto the feet, whatever feels comfortable, just to curl in a little bit here. Let the head relax. There's 5 breaths here in between sides. And then coming back upright, bringing the feet into that Baddha position, and then bringing that left foot back behind you. I'm going to turn to the right, making sure that the hip is lining up with the bolster, and then lying down onto the bolster. And remembering option to bring that left leg forward, and if you need to lift the hips up and bring that right hip a little bit further underneath you, so you're trying to stack one hip on top of the other if it's feeling too uncomfortable there. Let the arms rest down and close down the eyes. One side might feel a little bit looser or tighter than the other. Sense of surrendering the weight of the body here. This last couple of breaths here. And then opening up the eyes, using your hands to come back up to seated, and extending the legs out in front of you, keeping the knees bent, hip distance apart. And once again, we'll just take that little forward curve here, taking hold of the opposite wrists if you were holding one before. Letting the head curve forward. And then let's come back upright with the torso. You might want to keep your blanket on the bolster, but I'm just going to take it off for this next pose. We're going to take half saddle. So with half saddle, we want to keep the bolster a little bit away from the lower back. So probably it's about 10, 15 centimeters, something like that. So we can keep the lower back long. So we're going to go into our half saddle and we'll start with the left leg. So we're going to bend that left foot back behind and alongside the hip, toes pointing backwards. And then use your hands, start to lean back onto the bolster and then lift the hips up and just tuck the tailbone down a little bit, just so you can lengthen out through the lower back and then start to lie back down onto the bolster. And you might want to have your blanket there if that feels more comfortable for your head. Arms can just stay down by your side, or you can take hold of your elbows up above the head. If you need this right foot down for that stability, then feel free to keep it there. Some of you might feel comfortable to extend it long. And you can keep the foot pretty relaxed. Closing down the eyes if that feels good. Just allowing the upper body to soften back into the bolster. And I did forget to mention, if this is too strong on that left knee in this position, you could always pop a blanket underneath that left knee. So if the knee's like lifted into the air, then you just pop something underneath it so it's supported. And for some of us, we might not lean as far back. So even with a couple of extra blankets, sometimes it can be a bit too much. So if there's any pain in the knee, then please just come out, just stay in a position where you're not feeling too many strong sensations in that left knee. Trying to encourage that left hip to drop down. And then releasing the arms if they're up above the head, placing the palms face down, lifting the head up and starting to press into your hands to come back up to a seated position, and then lean into that right hand so you can extend that left leg out long. And we'll go straight to the other side. Let's start by bending both knees up and then bringing that right foot back behind you, toes are pointing back. Lean back into the hands, starting to lean back into the bolster, and then lift the hips up, just tucking that tailbone under slightly to lengthen out the lower back, and then continue to lie all the way back down. Let the head relax down. In your choice, maybe arms just down by your side this time, or taking those arms up, taking opposite elbow if you remember which one you did last time. And if you feel okay, then you can just extend that left leg away long. Just following the breathing in and out through the nose. Just noticing if there's any way you can soften these last few moments. Relaxing the face, the front of the throat, upper back onto the bolster. And then opening up the eyes, releasing the arms down by your side, palms facing down, lifting the head up, and then using your hands just to come back up, upright. And then let's release that right leg back long in front of you. We're going to take a forward fold now with our bolster. The legs long, and this might be comfortable for you. Just have it in a position where you feel like you could just lean forward. If you feel comfortable to have it on your feet, then feel free. And some of us might stay a little bit high, so you might stay just a bit more upright rather than come forward. So just choosing what feels good for you. And if you've got your head turned to one side, then just in a little while, I'll get you to turn it to the other side. Just whatever position you're in, just allowing yourself to relax down. And we can allow the spine to just curve forward here. And if you've been a little bit more upright, you might feel like you can start to move a bit deeper in and take the bolster into a different position. Or if you're using the bolster already long, you might be able to move the bolster off to one side and just start to come forward. Just the last few breaths here. And then start to walk the hands back up. Take your bolster and place it underneath your knees. So we're going to move into our Shavasana now. So this is quite nice, having the bolster underneath your knees really releases the lower back. And if you want some support for your head, you could pop a blanket underneath to lie back on. Make sure that you're warm, arms a little bit away from the body, palms facing up. Let's take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. 2 more like that. Deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Last one. Inhaling and exhaling. Just allowing the breathing to settle back into its natural rhythm. Just feeling completely supported by the ground underneath you. And allowing yourself to rest here. Please feel free to stay here resting for as long as you need to. Thank you so much for joining me for today's practice. I'll see you next time. Namaste.